Alrighty, folks. If it weren't for collaborative efforts at our Dream Center here and many of the other ones that I know, I don't know that we would have even survived, let alone let alone being able to grow to what we are doing today. Here in Phoenix, when we talk about partnering with other organizations and other agencies, when we first started, that's all we were. We honestly stepped into a building that was bigger than what we had the bandwidth for. We had room for 300-400 people to house them, but we didn't have 300 or 400 people. Like, we just had a dream and a vision, and neither do we have finances for it. And so I've talked to several dream centers about initial collaborations when you first start collaborating with folks. So I think especially if you get a property that is a little more than you can handle, or a little more than you need, but that's the property that God's given you right then. How do you grow into that? And one of the nice ways to grow into that is through collaboration. So imagine this type of world. So you get a building, and maybe you can mostly afford the rent or the lease fee or the insurance or whatever, but maybe not all the way. But I assure you, if it's a city of any size, at any given time, there are a number of people who are trying to do the same thing you're doing or similar. Maybe, I don't mean help the same people you help, but they're trying to grow. They're trying to get into a building. And so let's say you've got the building, or you want to gather together with a number of others and get a building together. It can work to sublease out parts of your property to other ministries, to partner with other ministries to do some of the work that you do. And this isn't just something we did in the beginning. We're still doing this today. Here we are, nearly 15 years into this thing, and we're still subleasing out, subcontracting out some of our work to other organizations. Now, here's how it rolled out in Phoenix. So we had an old hotel. Well, we have it still, but we got an old hotel, and we started to do our ministry in it, but had a lot of space and a lot of need for finances. It was an incredible burden to our church. We had no idea it was going to be that expensive. And so what we did was we sublet out some of the rooms, and they were essentially corporate offices for these other ministries. So we subcontracted out with a computer ministry. They had a ministry to elderly folks who they would help them get a computer so they could send pictures to the grandkids and things like that. And then we sublet out another to a library. It was a Christian book place who wanted to do Christian books. We sublet another one that was for a Christian shoe manufacturer, but they needed like an office to bundle the stuff and to drop ship it or whatever they were doing. We also sublet out all of our main program services at first to a ministry that had been with us for a long time, but we had a sub-lease agreement with them. We did that with 9 or 10. I think the most I ever had was 10. Because I had the 10 rooms down there, and each of them were paying $500-600 a month for their rent. And you do the math on that's $5,000 or $6,000 a month that was coming in, and that paid a lot of my bills early on. Not necessarily the electric bill, which was huge, but it paid some of the insurance, it paid the gas, and it paid the internet type costs. And so subletting out, contracting with folks has been really critical for us. I think, though, that I've also had some real nightmare situations happen with it. And so learn from us as we've made error. One of the most important things I think we learned early on, and I had a great mentor, Gary Allison, who was kind of forced my hand in this area, but having everything well documented, the agreement, having the framework of the agreement well documented, so everybody understands it is absolutely critical. And even today, whether it's just a partnership and there's no transaction of any kind, I still have those partnerships through an MOU, a memorandum of understanding. And sometimes an MOU is just a one-page document saying, hey, when we talk about this partnership, this is what we're going to say, and this is what we are okay with you saying. For example, on all those 10 sub-ministries that I was leasing out to year one, we had agreement with them of how can the Dream Center market this and how can we talk about it. And what our agreement was okay, we're going to tell people that we have a homeless ministry, even though it was another ministry doing it. And we'll say we have a homeless ministry at the Dream Center. We're raising money for it. And when we raise money for it, we're talking about, because you're paying a little bit a month, but you're not paying for everything. So we're fundraising for that part of it. And we're going to say that we have a computer ministry at the Dream Center, and we're raising money for that. And our pitch back was, well, you're paying for your rent, but that doesn't cover everything. Like there's parking lot costs and overhead costs, and so the $600 a month that you're paying, I mean, if I was to charge you for all that, it'd be $2,000 a month. And so some of that stuff, all of that stuff gets spelled out in memorandum of understandings, lease agreements on that little chip that you can get if you write to us. We've got everything from a 30-page sub licensing agreement to facility use agreements to one-page MOUs that have been great that we use repeatedly in the ministry. So outlining the terms and conditions is very critical, just so everybody understands. Some of the key things you want to put in there are things like tours and branding and co-branding and fundraising and the mechanics of offerings and how the money's going to get passed from hand to hand if that's the case. The other thing that I'll warn about, if you will, is that so we have collaborated with just about anybody you can imagine in just about every area, but there are a couple areas that we really play close to the breast. We don't partner in some areas, and one of those areas for us has been in the area of doctrine. And so if we want to partner with a church and they want to come in and paint, and no matter what church they are, the mainstream churches or churches that most of us would probably relegate to a cult, the question is, do we partner with them? Do we work with them? And for us, the answer is absolutely we do in most areas. But in some areas, in the area of what is theologically taught on our campus, we don't partner with anybody. We keep that all in-house. That's the one we play close to our breast. When it comes to areas like that are so core to who you are, who your church is, you don't want to give up on those. And so the only way to not give up on them is to never let those be a part of any contention. It's never a point of contention. So you'll run into some areas like this. Like we had a family life coach at one point who was teaching some of our young women, and she came in and she had a much different stance than we had on abortion and adoption and different things, and it came to the staff's attention that she was teaching these different things, and so what we ended up realizing was that we never spelled this out with her. Like we never did this, and so we started to make it a part of our MOUs to have sort of our 16 fundamental principles of the Assemblies of God. Now you'll have principles for your church, but so what we did was anybody coming in, we just made it known that if you're teaching or if you have any kind of a voice, like a platform voice, that we expect everything that happens on this campus to fall within these. And we're not asking you to teach these, but we're asking that anything that you might teach that is in direct opposition to this, that it not be taught. We have the right to ask you to do that, and as much as you can front load that stuff, those conversations, and try to do it before you even get to a point where you're having to sit people down and get crazy. The more you can front load that stuff, the better. And so sensitivity to doctrine and to different sensitive things like that, I mean, those are all some ways that in the beginning you really want to head that off. And I know it's tough. Like when you're starting out, you're beginning, like, man, you're just trying to get people in there to teach, and you're just trying to get people in there to help, and you're just trying to do stuff right. And you get someone that comes along and they do life skills and case management, and man, you're thrilled, right? Like you got the person, you got the person to do it. But as much as you can, sit down beforehand with your board or your church and say, okay, what are the things that we would never compromise on? Like, what are if we're going to collaborate, partner with people, what are the things we'd never allow? tell the story sometimes at Dream Conference of we partnered with a ministry to use our banquet room, and they wanted to basically rent it out once a week and do a church service. That's how it was first presented to me. And I said, okay, well, this is pretty cool. And then I found out that my person who was kind of researching, she found out that they did deliverance type ministries, and we're not against that and opposed to that. So okay, well, just I mean, we know now that it's going to be kind of that type of meeting. Like, watch out, it's going to get loud. But then we found out that they did certain styles of their ministry that really, like, that's really what they do. And so I had a meeting with them, called them into my office, had a meeting. I said, so what are we talking about here? Like, how does what all is a deliverance? And we just need to talk it through so we're prepared, our team, because there's going to be other people on campus. We need to know what's going to happen. And and they said, well, no, it's not a big deal. The only thing we need is just some garbage cans. And I was like, some garbage cans? I was like, well, yeah, there's a couple garbage cans. And they said, no, like the type of deliverance we have, we just really, we press in and people contort and they're like, sometimes people throw up. And I'm like, oh, like they vomit, like people really vomit. And they're like, yeah, they're getting it out. They're cleansing, they're purging, they're getting it out. And I'm like, so, and I was serious. I was serious. I was like, so do you bring your own garbage cans or do you take the garbage out? Like, I didn't know what to say. I was imagining like this circle of people, like all vomiting and someone talking about Jesus, like, purging. And I get it. I'm not, I believe in that. I believe wholly in that. But to say that that's going to happen week after week and that was the focus, was that you bring people around and you contort until you vomit. Like, I was like, what do we put on the website? Like a vomit ministry? Like, what are we talking about here? And so I mean, that didn't fit. That didn't fit with what we did. I was imagining the smell because, like, the next morning we'd have breakfast in there, and I'm like, we just had vomit ministry in here last night. Like, it just didn't fit with who we were, right? And so that would have never been spelled out if we wouldn't have had that agreement early on to stay that, hey, this is kind of how we do this. We'll have another whole separate video on how we partner with government entities and how those collaborations work. But I will say that collaborations are absolutely a key with what we do. I'll tell you that when you get into the realm of partnering with groups who are ideologically opposed, seemingly to Christianity, how does that work? And how do you still partner with them, or how do you not partner graciously